So was the Prime Minister's election gamble bad for Brexit? Well, joining me now to discuss that further are the editor of BrexitCentral, Jonathan Isaby, and Lucy Thomas, former Deputy Director of Britain Stronger in Europe, the official Remain campaign in the EU referendum. So welcome to both of you. So Theresa May went into this election saying the reason I'm calling it is a bigger majority will give me a firmer, a stronger hand in Brexit negotiations. So presumably this result, Jonathan, means that her hand is weakened, doesn't it?
I don't think so. At the end of the day, she put out in her Lancaster House speech, in the White Paper before the election, what the government's position is on the Brexit deal she wants to negotiate. She's reappointed David Davis yesterday, which I think was eminently sensible. There was some tittle-tattle last weekend that she might remove him. Absolutely right that he's still there to negotiate this deal because the talks begin in 9 days' time. She wants to get on with it. The European leaders told us yesterday they want to get on with it. So let's get on with it.
So her hand not weakened at all, you think?
Look, clearly it would have been better had she had an overall majority, but one of the reasons that she called the election was because there are a lot of people, particularly in the House of Lords, who are agitating to try and seek to block her agenda over the coming period. She might not have got an overall majority, but it looks like she's going to have a government where she can get her business through the House of Commons, and the commitments she's made were in the manifesto, so the House of Lords will not be in a position to block those laws that she wants to pass on Brexit.
OK, Lucy Thomas, nothing has changed and Brexit negotiations can begin.
Well, I couldn't disagree more, I'm afraid, Jonathan, because Theresa May herself said, strengthen my hand as I go and negotiate. Every vote for me does so. Well, I'm afraid every seat lost and losing your majority therefore weakens it. And let's not forget the Brexit Secretary himself, David Davis, overnight on Thursday said, if we don't have a majority, we do not have a mandate for what we set out in the Brexit White Paper and the manifesto, which is leaving the single market, leaving the customs union, and crucially that no deal is better than a bad deal. So I think all of that is now in play, and we have seen people like Ruth Davidson, on whom Theresa May is dependent for her support, saying she wants an open Brexit. There are all kinds of questions, I think, and this is, judging Theresa May and David Davis on their own words. If the Brexit Secretary himself is saying our mandate is weakened, then surely his mandate is weakened.
And what about the fact that in order to get the numbers up, Theresa May is talking about an arrangement with the DUP. We don't have details of what that is yet. It hasn't been thrashed out yet as far as we know. What implications could that have of having a party like the DUP on board as well?
Well, the DUP back Brexit. They have 10 members of Parliament, all of whom back Brexit. And people talk about issues to do with the Irish border. The DUP want a border that they want a frictionless border in Northern Ireland. The government want a frictionless border in Northern Ireland. The Irish government want a frictionless border in Northern Ireland. The Labour Party want a frictionless border in Northern Ireland. Everyone agrees on that. And indeed, in terms of Brexit itself, let's not forget, at the election on Thursday, more than 85% of people voted for parties who accepted the referendum result. The Conservatives did, the Labour Party did, UKIP did. And at the end of the day, we had a referendum just a year ago. And the reason you have a referendum in this country is where you get issues that go above party politics, where you want to get the British people to give their view on a particular issue. And there's no question that people voted on a lot of other issues other than Brexit on Thursday.
And Lucy, DUP are controversial for other reasons, but as far as Brexit is concerned, if they agree pretty much with what the Conservative Party feel on Brexit, then is it a problem as far as the negotiations are concerned, a tie-up?
Well, certainly on the hard border issue and the fact they don't want a hard border, they've been clear there. But something which Nigel Dodds, one of their MPs, said yesterday is that a condition of theirs is that they don't want special status for Northern Ireland. Now, that is quite contentious because, given the border sensitivities, it is going to be very hard to find a solution which both, if we do leave the single market and customs union, allows goods to cross freely without there being a hard border. And so I don't see a way of finding a workable solution which doesn't affect trade and doesn't hinder people moving across the border, which isn't some kind of special status. So it massively binds the negotiations' hands.
And isn't the truth that the outcome of this whole election has weakened Theresa May's authority? She went out in order to get a big majority. She hasn't got it. To a certain extent, does that mean that it will empower some of her own backbenchers as well, who may have different views on Brexit, who may be against it altogether? Will she have to listen to those voices? And will she have to listen more to the opposition, the Labour Party, which is so much stronger now?
Well, as I said, the Labour Party accepted the referendum result. Jeremy Corbyn said during the election...
But there are different types of Brexit, aren't there?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn said specifically during the campaign that he accepted that freedom of movement would come to an end, which means leaving the single market, because you can't not have freedom of movement and not be in the single market. Keir Starmer just, in fact, the weekend when the London attacks happened, gave an interview, which very few people picked up on because of the attacks, saying that the ECJ should not be the arbiter of EU citizens' rights after Brexit, which is what the EU wants. So I think there's actually more common ground that people would accept. And Lucy still talks about if we leave the single market, if we leave the customs union. Those are absolutely fundamental parts of what Brexit are. And to not do that would be to still reject the referendum result at the referendum of last year.
Do you agree that other voices that might feel differently don't need to be necessarily taken on board, that the government has its idea of what it wants to do and it can push ahead?
Well, I think taking it back to what there is a mandate for here, categorically there is no majority for what the Conservatives set out. So I think in a way we're starting where we should have started a year ago in working out what is the right thing to do, rather than making assumptions as Theresa May has done and said people definitely want to leave the single market customs union, everything else I'm going to ram it through. Actually, if this election shows anything, it's that perhaps people aren't on board with that. So perhaps let's look again, let's listen to business, let's really do what's best for the country rather than what's best for their politics.
OK, we must leave it there. Lucy Thomas and Jonathan Isaby, good to see you both. Thanks very much indeed. I'm sure we'll be returning to this many times over the months ahead.